Oh, good morning again, everyone. Welcome back to another Tech Support Sunday. I am so excited to be here today for the next hour or so. We're going to talk about some things that'll help you make your life a little bit better with technology, answer your questions in the chat, and just kind of recap the week. Today, we're going to talk about some cool things you can do with your personal Gmail address, what you might do with an old computer or phone that's laying around, some of the free or really inexpensive streaming services that are out there. We're going to talk about the Epic lawsuit against Apple just because it's a big deal and could seriously affect and impact the way your smartphone operates in the future. And we're going to talk about the coolest feature that I had forgotten about, which I recently rediscovered, which is private listening on Roku. So let's go ahead and get started. Here we go. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Levi Sauerbrei. I am the Nerd Butler, and you can find out more about me and my content at nerdbutler.com. You can find me all over social media at Nerd Butler. I talk about tips, tricks, tools, tutorials, resources, recommendations, all the things that you can use to make tech a more productive part of your life. Technology is not a luxury. It's something we use every day. It's something that affects our quality of life every day. And I'm super excited to be here to talk to you guys about it. I will put this up again a couple more times during the hour, but you can also get a hold of me at contact@nerdbutler.com. Send an email to that address. Or if you'd like to leave a voicemail for me, you can do so at, let's see it one more time, 469-546-5585. That is just a voicemail box. I will get the notification about that. If you'd like me to respond to you directly, please leave contact information there. If not, I will take your voicemail and include it in the next broadcast. So here we are. It's August 30th. We're almost to fall. Is September fall? Sure. School's starting up again. That's going to be pretty crazy for a lot of people because a lot of folks are still at home. A lot of folks are going back to school. So if you have questions about back to school tech, we can absolutely talk about that. Let me flip around here to my various areas. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was Gmail. Gmail's been around more than 15 years now. I think we're all pretty used to having it. We're all pretty used to using it. If you haven't signed up for a Gmail account yet, you certainly know somebody who has, and you've sent mail to @Gmail addresses. There's a couple really cool things that you can do with your Gmail account, and there's also a couple things that have continued to sort of pester people with Gmail. So I want to talk about dots in Gmail addresses first. So I'm going to flip over here. Let's share a screen. So this is the official Google support page about dots in your email address. And you wouldn't think this is a big deal, but typically when we talk about computers, we understand that computers are really, really literal devices. There is a difference between a capital J and a lower J. There's a difference between a space and a blank if you use certain kinds of software. So you would think that the difference between johnsmith@gmail.com and john.smith@gmail.com would matter. It does, but Gmail, Google, in their infinite wisdom, and there are good reasons for it, have decided that if you have a Gmail address, you can put dots anywhere you want in that Gmail address, and it just doesn't matter. So here in their official help and support page regarding dots, they're very clear about this, and people are continually confused, and this keeps coming up in support forums in different places that I look. If your email is johnsmith@gmail.com, that includes every variation of it, no matter how many dots you put in it. So john.smith, jo.hn.sm.ith@gmail. I feel like this article was actually written by a really frustrated customer support rep who had taken this question a lot of times. But they're serious and they mean it when they say no amount of dots in the email address affects the email. Those 3 examples you see listed will all be delivered to the one you see listed in the paragraph above, johnsmith@gmail.com. Why does this matter? Well, people are continually assuming that someone else has signed up for a similar Gmail address, and they are suddenly getting misrouted or misdelivered emails that were intended for someone else. Typically, this happens because the person who typed in the email address initially to send the email typed it in wrong. So maybe it was John Smith without an H. Maybe it was John Smith, but it was SMYTH. And they typed in John.Smith in the more traditional way, and traditional for Americans. And the person received this email that was intended for a different John Smith, and they're suddenly convinced that Google is sending their emails to the wrong places. So in every example of this that I've been able to find, the misdelivered email is actually the result of someone typing in an incorrect email address, or of someone giving that person an incorrect email address. So it's worth noting that if you have johnsmith@gmail.com, no one else is allowed to sign up for a Gmail account with any of these variations here. Conversely, if you have john.smith@gmail.com, no one can sign up for the non-dotted johnsmith@gmail.com. All of these emails are exactly the same in the eyes of Google. It's an important thing to remember. It's interesting because Gmail has been around since 2004, and this comes up probably once a year or so in some of the support boards that I'm looking at. It has come up in the past as well. So if you want to tell somebody that your email address is john.smith because the dot makes it stand out more, that's perfectly fine. It really is. Your email, it can still be John Smith. If you forget to include the dot at some point, it'll still come to your inbox, providing they get the letters right. So that's an important thing to know about Gmail in terms of how it functions. One of the things that you can do with Gmail with a different punctuation mark is to create additional Gmail addresses. I put this in quotes, additional Gmail addresses within your Gmail account, and then filter them so that your inbox gets a little cleaner. Or so you can see, perhaps, I know some people like to do this. They're convinced that they signed up for a service and then that service sold their email address to somebody else. And they're very annoyed, but it's really hard to understand how data is getting sold because it's all the same email address that it's being sent to. So you signed up for auto billing with your cell phone company, and all of a sudden you start getting ads, spam for something else. It would be really nice if you had sort of disposable email addresses that still came to your inbox that you could use to track these things. So I want to talk about what Google calls plus addressing and how you can use it with your Gmail account. So I'm going to jump over to a Gmail account that I created just for demonstrating things like this. This is the nerdbutler@gmail.com. I wouldn't recommend you send anything to it because I don't check it that often. I basically use it for demonstration purposes because there's nothing in here that matters to me. So you shouldn't be seeing any personal, private, or otherwise sensitive information. But I did send an email to this account this morning from one of my other emails to demonstrate how plus addressing works. So I want to open up this email, and we're going to look at the header up here, pull down this little show details so you can see who sent it, who received it, the date, the time, all of that stuff. I sent it from my Nerd Butler account. Not a big shock. You guys can probably figure out Levi at Nerd Butler, but email me if you have a question. But I sent this email to nerdbutler plus signup@gmail.com. Now, the email address for this account is simply nerdbutler@gmail.com, but I still received this email when I sent it. So how do I use this and what do I use it for? A couple of things I can use it for. If you are pretty sure that you're going to sign up for something and you need to use your real email address because you do need to check it, you do need to see what's going on, but you're worried about them selling your information somewhere else, and you kind of want to understand where some of this spam is coming from, you can use your Gmail address plus any word at the end of the username and before the @Gmail. So let's grab our notepad here just so I can do some demonstrations. So we started out with nerdbutler@gmail.com. Wow, I cannot type at all this morning. nerdbutler@gmail.com. All right. Let's say that I am a Verizon customer and I'm going to create my account on the Verizon website so that I can do auto billing, and they're going to try and send me newsletters and all of that sort of thing. I could sign up for that on the website with nerdbutler plus Verizon@gmail.com. Now, this email is still going to come to my inbox, and it's still going to be delivered. I can still reply to it. It's going to work just like a normal email. But I only used this email when I signed up for Verizon. So if I suddenly start getting ads for cable services or mail enhancement products or lawn care services being sent to nerdbutler plus Verizon@gmail.com, I know that they got my email address from Verizon, and I can deal with that appropriately. But a lot of people want to understand, like, why am I suddenly getting spam? Why am I suddenly getting messages in this way? So similarly, we could sign up for with anything. So maybe just bills. That would be a little more generic, right? Bills, plural. I can imagine as many of these as I want. I don't even have to create them. But when I sign up for something, when I give someone or an organization my email address, I can add one of these plus signs on it so that when I receive the email, can understand maybe how that person, how that organization got that email address. So what can I do with it once I've got it? Well, one of the cool things you can do with it is you can create filters in Gmail that will allow you to perform an action on an email automatically. So this one, I use nerdbutler plus sign up, and I'm going to filter messages like these. So we just clicked our little 3 dots up here, filter messages like these. And I don't care about who it was from. I really care about who it was to. nerdbutler sign up @gmail.com. All right. Don't care about the subject. Really, for this example, I only care about who it was sent to. And it was sent to this email, which is different than just nerdbutler@gmail.com. I'm going to go ahead and create a filter. And I'm going to say, when I get emails like this, I would like to apply a label to them. And labels in Gmail are just their way of categorizing things. It's not the same as a folder, and we can talk more about that in the future. It's just, I always describe labels as a little sticky note that you put on an email. And you can search those sticky notes and find all of the ones that have a red sticky note or a blue sticky note or a yellow sticky note or all the sticky notes that have a particular word written on them. So we're going to label this one as signups just for fun. I'll create that. And then I will create the filter. You can see before I leave this screen, there are a lot of actions we can take. We can automatically archive any messages like this. We can automatically mark them as read. We can do multiple things here. I could apply the label and archive it and mark it as read all at the same time. I could automatically forward it somewhere. I can automatically delete it. I can whitelist it. We're not using whitelist anymore. I can approve it so that it is never marked as spam again. Anything sent to this email address will never be spam. I can always mark it as important, never mark it as important. I can put it in a category, and I want to apply this to the one that exists already, and then I will create the filter. Perfect. So if we go back to inbox again, go back to my inbox, and you can see now that this one has been labeled with signups. So I don't need to even see that it was sent to that email address now. I'm just going to know. And I did that using filters. Filters are one of the coolest things you can do in Gmail, and using that plus addressing, which is creating an email address that is your email address plus a word before the @Gmail, is a really cool way of doing this. I feel like I'm not explaining this super smoothly, but I want you to remember this. And the next time you're going to sign up for something like maybe a newsletter from a website that you're not so sure about, maybe you're signing up for notifications from a particular vendor, from a particular business, maybe you're signing up for, just because you have to sign up in order to view the content you want to view. Consider, if you're using Gmail, using one of these plus addresses, because it'll give you a little more control and a better way of filtering those messages when they come back. It's actually really a cool way of doing that. You do have to kind of keep track of which ones you've created, so maybe jot them down somewhere and make a note of those. But it is a really nifty way to have a little more insight into how your data is getting moved around the internet. All right, back to my list. Here we go. Let's see. I will also throw this one up here real quick just so you can see. This is the official blog from Gmail, and this is actually from 2008, which is how long this feature has been around, and so few people actually use it. If any of you guys want the links to these things, I will certainly include them in the descriptions afterwards, but this is just a write-up of how they've decided to deal with this. The plus ones, we talked about dots. They talk about dots as being another way you can create those filters. I don't think that's the best way to go, because the dots can be inserted by people inadvertently. And so if you set up filters based on dots, it might move emails or do things to them that you were not intending. But using the plus sign is great. Don't recognize it. And then they talk about how to set up a filter to create, to take actions on emails that meet specific criteria. All right. That was my Gmail spiel. I think Gmail as a free product is one of the most powerful tools that we have. And it's been around for a long time, and it just keeps getting better. There are certainly people who have problems with Gmail, with the way data is collected, with Google in general, and I understand and respect all of that. But as a product that I've used for at least 10 years now, it is spectacular and a lot of value for what you get. All right, what was going to be next? More stuff about that. So I think before we dive into the next one, I will remind you that I am Levi Sauerbrei and I am the Nerd Butler. You can find more of my content at nerdbutler.com or anywhere on social media at Nerd Butler. I would love to hear from you if you want to leave a comment. If you would like to ask a question, you can fill out a form on the website, or you can find me on social media, or you can send me an email at contact@nerdbutler.com, or you can leave me a voicemail at 469-546-5585. I promise I won't answer that voicemail. I won't answer the phone when you call, so you have no fear of inadvertently talking to a human being. I know sometimes that can be stressful, but if you leave a voicemail there, I will certainly include your question in the next broadcast. And if you would like a direct response, please leave a social handle, an email address, or a phone number where you'd like me to get back to you. Excuse me. All right. Next up on my list, I guess it was a couple weeks ago, YouTube TV announced that they were raising their rates again. In the past, Netflix has raised their rates. And I got to be honest, in my house, we pay for virtually all of the sort of premium top services. We have HBO Max, we have Disney Plus, we have Hulu, We don't have Hulu Live, but we do have YouTube TV. We have CBS All Access. I think that's the whole list, but we're paying a lot monthly for all of these services. It actually, I said this several years ago, if you're planning on cutting the cord and getting rid of your cable subscription, doing it for cost savings is not the way to go. And that was back when some of this stuff was less expensive. Now, basically, if you subscribe to all the things, you are paying as much or more than you would have paid for just basic cable service anyway. So cost isn't the issue. If cost is the issue, there are still lots of great options out there. So I want to talk about some of the free or really inexpensive streaming services that are out there. It's interesting because we have Vizio TVs in our house, and Vizio has done actually a pretty good job of updating the software in their TVs. So they've been putting in security updates and this and that, but they're also adding more access to more of these streaming services natively through their smart TVs, which, again, some people want dumb TVs, but they're very hard to find now. Most TVs have apps or have access to things like Netflix, like Amazon. I really like my Vizio TVs because they continue to add both premium, so like Disney Plus showed up in my row of available apps, but also free services. So one of the first free service I want to talk about, because it has the most content, is Pluto TV. So it's at Pluto, Pluto.tv. And Pluto is interesting. It's completely free. You can see all of these devices where Pluto TV works. Amazon Fire TV. There's an Android app. You can Chromecast it. There's an iOS app. The PlayStation. Roku has a Pluto channel. Samsung and Vizio. And if you, I'm going to go ahead and launch it here. We'll see if it inadvertently makes some noise for me. If you are used to a traditional cable TV sort of cable TV program guide, Pluto gives you that. So down here at the bottom, you can see by time, here's a bunch of different channels. It tells you what the channel is. There's a PGA channel, Entertainment Tonight Live, and then Pluto has some special channels. The content on Pluto, when they started out, was really, I would say, second tier, second rate. But as time has gone on, they've added, some more slightly higher quality stuff. There's going to be some movies on there that you remember. I wouldn't say that they're like, box office smashes from the last 5 years, but there's going to be content there that you like. There's also lots of really interesting channels. I'm flipping through. There's a horror channel that's currently showing Children of the Corn. There's a terror channel, documentaries, 80s Rewind, also showing Children of the Corn. The Italian Job. Which one is that? I think that's the newer one. Westerns, classic movies, cult films, just tons and tons and tons of content. Pluto TV has dozens and dozens of channels, including sports, including news, including movies, and all of these things. And it's all free. Now, there's ads on it, but there's, if you're used to this kind of media consumption, you're used to ads. So Pluto TV is a really interesting place to get a lot of content if you're either budget constrained, or you're just kind of sick of scrolling through Netflix. One of the interesting things about Pluto TV is that it is television in the more traditional sense. It is not on demand. It is not, watch whatever you want right now. You go to Pluto TV, and whatever is showing on that channel on Pluto at this time is what's showing. There's no DVR function. There's no rewinding or treating it like it's a DVR. It is what I grew up with as television. If you had cable television as a child, this is very, very similar. So like I said, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of channels. They're grouped up by news, by sports, by documentaries, by reality television, love and hip hop. There's a channel just for love and hip hop. Spike, if you remember the old Spike channel, I do from from cable television. If you don't have cable TV anymore, Spike is here on Pluto. There is, for me, for nostalgia's sake, there is one channel that just shows the American Gladiator show from the early 2000s, like just 24 hours a day, episode after episode of American Gladiators. That's amazing. There's definitely some nostalgia in here. Some MTV channels. There's one channel of just CSI, on and on and on. Cops, 24/7 episodes of Cops. Dog the Bounty Hunter has his own channel. So there's, again, check out Pluto TV, Pluto.tv. And just like, you're going to find, I think most people are going to find one or two things that you will enjoy. Now, it might not be worth installing it on your phone. It might not be worth, investing in understanding what all the channels are. But if you scroll through the channels just once, I bet you're going to find something where you'll stop for 15 or 20 minutes and say, ooh, I remember that. So that's the first one. And I started with Pluto because it's sort of the most comprehensive, but there are lots of other streaming services with lots and lots of content, and some of it's pretty good content that are free. So the next one I wanted to talk about was Crackle TV. Sorry, we'll grab a transition here. So Crackle TV used to be owned by Sony, and they've sold it sometime in the recent past to another ownership group. But Crackle is ad-supported, so if you watch it, there will be commercials in the middle of what you're doing. There are TV shows, there are movies, you have a search function here, but you can see if we scroll down through, they do have some exclusive content. I have never found the exclusive content to be particularly compelling, but it's really hard to get me to come to a new show or a new movie. I do about one a month maybe, and then I let it go. But there are definitely things on here, again, similar to Pluto TV. If you scroll through here long enough, you're going to find something that tickles your fancy. If you were a fan of Hey Arnold back in the day, Who's the Boss, which I haven't even thought about for 20 years. But if you would like to watch some Who's the Boss, here it is on Crackle TV. Merlin is a series I watched for a while. Bewitched, they got some classic sitcoms on here as well, some sports. The 85 Bears, my favorite football team of all time. Never Back Down. This is one where I keep seeing clips of that on YouTube, so maybe I'll have to come back and watch the whole movie there. Katy Perry feature film. Again, just tons and tons and tons. Like, the world has created so many movies and so many television shows, and so many of them have sort of just faded out of our memory. But a lot of them have been licensed to services that are just trying to squeeze that last little bit out of them. So if you don't mind putting up with the ads, and they're not hugely invasive. Now, if you've been watching Netflix for a while or Hulu or something, and you've probably gotten out of the habit of watching ads. So it takes a little bit of getting used to again, but get up and get yourself a glass of water during the ads or something like that. Our 13-year-old is still pretty shocked when a commercial comes on, because so much of what we consume now for media just is on demand and doesn't have any commercials on it. But Crackle TV, just like it sounds, CRACKLE.com will give you a ton as well. There's a couple more that I sort of stumbled on in the last day or so that I haven't had a chance to explore. One of them is Fossum, and I think I'm saying that right, Fossum TV, free movies and shows. Again, it appears on a bunch of different platforms. Fire TV, there's a Windows app, LG televisions, Roku, and Roku TVs. And again, it's just a whole, 10,000 movies and shows, 250 free channels. If you are completely sick of the content you have access to, if you have found the end of YouTube and you watched the last video and you're looking for new stuff to consume, I think these are the kinds of services that are definitely worth checking out. So some really, I won't even say classic horror movies because they're bizarre, and I don't know that they were good when they came out, but if you like campy, culty horror movies, there are tons and tons of services out there that will get you in that direction. Valentine's Day, this looks a little dated, but that's okay. Romantic World Cinema. And again, the idea here is that you're going to find some stuff to watch that you haven't found before. But particularly with the TV shows, I've found that going to services like this lead me back to shows that I remember from my youth. So if you're a little older, maybe that's a thing you want to check out. And that's a fun one to look at. So you will be able to find more than just what I'm listing here. There are tons and tons. There are lots of free streaming services that focus in on a very specific genre, whether that's anime or horror films, or, campy 50s movies. If you look around a little bit, if you Google free streaming 50s movies, you will probably find a service that will run ads in the middle of the movies, but will allow you to watch those. One that I hadn't thought of, and I think they just recently sort of rolled out this service, was IMDb. And if you haven't used IMDb before, it stands for, or it stood for back in the day before everybody just started using acronyms for things, the Internet Movie Database. And a lot of times, you'll come to IMDb and you'll look up, a movie because you can't remember what the character's name was or something about it. So it's a database of lots of movies and TV shows and actors and actresses. So you can come through and look. Wow, there's a TV series called Say Anything, but I remember the movie from 1989, and you can come in and look at the actors and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of that is great. I've used IMDb for years to settle arguments with people, to see, oh man, that person looks familiar. That actor looks familiar. I wonder if they were also in another show. And then you would go check it out. So you can click on John Cusack and then see his whole career laid out in front of you. But what IMDb has also started offering is free streaming of movies and shows. So let me get back to where I was. Was that it? So if you go to imdb.com/TV, you will land on this page where you can create a free account if you'd like. That way you can bookmark things for later viewing, or you can just come down and start watching. Recently added movies. These are not top 10 movies at the box office last year, but I remember Shrek. I would certainly sit down and watch Shrek again. I never did catch Seabiscuit, so maybe I want to watch that one. I'll watch Crimson Tide almost any time because I enjoy it. It's a good popcorn movie for me. So there's tons of movies here available for you to stream while you're also settling your arguments about who was the best supporting actor in 1987. Looks like they have some Schitt's Creek shows. I don't know how many. A lot of times I find when I click through on TV shows on some of these services, they certainly don't have the entire series. They've only licensed one season or a few episodes from each season, but I can never argue with Bob Ross and the Joy of Painting. So if you ever just need to relax, you can come to imdb.com/TV and check out a little Joy of Painting. It's just very relaxing. But you can see as we continue to scroll down, again, even IMDb has original things. Most of that stuff has not compelled me to use a service or to start watching, but I might check some of them out. I really enjoyed Hidalgo. Just tons and tons of movies and shows in here that are going to help you out. So those are 4 free services that I think are worth your time. They're certainly not a total wasteland. There's going to be 1 or 2 things, at least in each of them, I think, that's going to catch your attention. And things like Pluto TV, I'll tell you, the maybe the dumbest channel on Pluto TV, but the one I probably watched more than any other is Slow TV. There's one channel on Pluto called Slow TV, and it's just an 8-hour video, for instance, shot from the front of a train traveling across Siberia. It's super relaxing. I don't know why. I don't try and explain it to anyone. I just sit down and watch 30 minutes of that once in a while to unwind a little bit. All right. If you were looking for something a little more robust or a little more current that has a little more predictable content, and you're tired of paying for the Hulu subscription or the YouTube TV subscription, the one I discovered this week as well, because one of Google's divisions, their fiber optics, their internet provider division, actually started recommending it, is Philo. Philo? I'm going to say Philo. PHILO.com. This is a subscription, so there's some money involved here. It's $20 a month, but it operates very similar to how YouTube TV operates. It's a cable package replacement. You have a DVR attached to it, so you can record shows and come back and watch them when you're ready. And it's only $20 a month with no contract, and you can get a 7-day trial period. Now, here is what you really have to ask yourself. You got to look at the channel list and decide if this list of channels is going to meet your entertainment needs for this. Notably missing to me are ESPN. Notably missing here are local affiliates. I have not seen many of those. They do have premium services that you can add for a few bucks more per month. Epics and Stars. I can record. I can watch on my TV. I can watch on my mobile phone. It's all internet based. You can stream on multiple devices. You can have multiple profiles, so everybody in the house can have their own setup. So if you look at this list of channels and you're like, you know what, $20 a month, everybody in the house can, find something on here they like. I think that works. If you got somebody who's really into the Hallmark channels, somebody who really likes country music, Comedy Central's great. The BBC World News, so you've got some news on there. The Food Network, Lifetime. So there are some legitimate and sort of top tier basic cable channels here. We're missing the major news channels. We do have HGTV, which is a big one for a lot of people. But what I might consider doing as I look at this is, if I was trying to cut back on my spending a little bit, I might go ahead and sign up for ESPN Plus, which is their completely streaming service, and just use that for my sports and then get this for all my other channels. But I thought this was a really interesting option if you are unwilling to pay what is now, I think, $60 a month for YouTube TV. Even at $60 a month, YouTube TV still has a lot of value for me because of the way I use it and the way my family uses it. So I'm going to stick with that. But as soon as I can, solve a couple of other problems with how do I get access to certain content, we might look at something like Philo TV and move on from that. The last one I want to talk about, and this is another free service, but I saved it for last because it segues into the next thing I wanted to talk about, and that is the Roku channel. So I think most people are familiar with the word Roku at this point, at least. It is a device that plugs into your television that acts as a set-top box and gives you access to, they're basically a facilitator. So from the Roku device, you can get to Disney Plus. You can get to hundreds and hundreds of different apps within Roku that will take you to additional content. Almost all of the services we've looked at here will work on Roku. At the moment, notably, HBO Max does not work on Roku because they haven't yet negotiated the deals for that. But I expect that to get done at some point in the future. But Roku has for a very long time and continues to be the leader in this type of device. Some of the competing devices are like an Amazon Fire Stick. A Google Chromecast isn't really a direct competitor because of the way it works, but these are the class of devices we're talking about. They plug into an HDMI port in the back of your television, and they allow you to get content from a variety of different sources. More recently, Roku has also gotten in the television business. So they partner with TV manufacturers and put Roku functionality built into the television. I love Roku. I've had them for years. I've had a bunch of different models, from the inexpensive ones that are like $30 all the way up to, I spent $110 for a Roku Ultra a while ago, and it has served me great. I have no complaints about them at all. My cheap one, which I've had for 6 or 7 years, is starting to get a little slow, but it has continued to receive software updates. It's really solid. So Roku, like most other big companies that are anywhere near the internet or media realm, has started offering content. So they have what they call the Roku channel. The Roku channel can be viewed obviously on Rokus, on Roku TVs. You can also view it on the web. You can come and sign up for an account. And again, it's the same type of thing. There's Seabiscuit again, Cold Case television show, How to Train Your Dragon. And then you can scroll through and see what's available. So they've got live TV from a variety of sources. They've got movies, they've got TV shows. They have a lot of collected licensed content that you can check out, including a section that is specifically broken out for kids content, which I think is something that if you're a parent of smaller children is really valuable to have because it allows you to have a little more confidence in what your kids are going to be watching. So the Roku channel is yet another place where we can get free content, and you don't even need to own a Roku in order to do that. What I wanted to talk about next was a feature that is part of Roku. Now, if you have a really old Roku device, this probably isn't going to work. And by really old, I mean more than 5 years old. As far as I know, every version of the Roku that's come out within the last couple years has at least some of this functionality. And the feature I'm talking about is private listening. Private listening is maybe the greatest invention in terms of improving your domestic situation if you have roommates or people you live with, especially during this time where we're all spending way too much time together in way too small of a space. Private listening is Roku's feature that gives you the ability to listen through headphones to what is playing on the television. So if you have someone in the home that goes to bed early and you want to sit up and watch the Avengers movie with the volume turned all the way up so you can really get the full impact of what's going on, you will get yelled at and or chastised because you woke everybody up. But if you have private listening from Roku and a good pair of headphones, you have solved the problem. So let me show you how this works. I'm going to show you Roku's help page for this because I got a couple good screenshots on here. Like I said, I think most of the more modern Rokus are going to have access to this feature. Some of the older ones may not. Private listening. So what I would suggest you do is get the Roku app on your phone. That is the easiest way to do it. There are some Rokus, as you move up the tiers of quality, where the remote itself will have a headphone jack in it. And that works really well. But what I've found is those remotes tend to drain batteries really, really fast. Like you might go through one set of AA's a week or more because those remotes are so power hungry, even when you're not using them. I've had no luck. I've tried a bunch of different kinds of batteries, lithium ion batteries. I've tried rechargeable batteries. The remotes just drain really quickly. And there's nothing more annoying than picking up the remote and clicking the button and having the remote be dead. Because then you wonder, is my TV dead? Is the Roku dead? You know, what's going on? And you gotta switch out the batteries. So I would suggest that you load the Roku app on your phone and then get that fired up, get it connected to your Roku. As long as you're on the same Wi-Fi network, so your home network, you can use private listening mode. And it's very, very simple. This is the screen from the app that mirrors the physical remote that you would get with a Roku. And you can see this little headphone guy here. When you tap on that, it'll give you a little notice that says private listening is about to be enabled. You will only be able to hear the sound through your device. And if you have your headphones on, the TV sound goes away and the sound comes up in your headphones and it is synced up perfectly. This is the piece that I find both the most amazing and the most necessary. If the audio was even slightly out of sync, watching a whole movie that way would absolutely drive me bonkers. But the audio is in perfect sync with what I'm seeing on the screen. So most recently, I've been watching the NBA playoffs. So I'm watching live sports through YouTube TV on the Roku, and I am sitting on a couch, and I have these headphones in and connected to my phone, and I'm using private listening, and it is a great experience. If you have a decent pair of headphones, even Bluetooth headphones. It is a great experience, and everything is in sync, and it will save your relationships. One of the things they mentioned in the help section is that up to 4 devices can be connected to the same Roku. So let's say you put the kids to bed and you and your wife are sitting on the couch wanting to watch a loud movie and not wake up the kids. You can both connect your phones through the Roku app to the Roku and use your headphones. It's an underutilized feature, I think. But I highly encourage, if you don't have a Roku and you're in the market for a streaming device, there's nothing to not recommend about them, unless HBO Max is absolutely your reason for being. But they have access to tons and tons of content. They have access to most of the major services, and that private listening feature, seriously, if you guys have been stuck at home with the same people for a while and it's getting a little testy because your viewing habits don't match up with other people's sleeping habits, private listening is going to save you so much time, energy, hassle, social discomfort, all the things. I have been going on and on. I'm probably going to skip over the hardware stuff I had. Let's see here. What do we got left? I will mention one more time the critical information you need to get in touch with me. If you'd like to see more content, you can check out nerdbutler.com. You can find me on social media at nerdbutler, so youtube.com/nerdbutler, twitter.com/nerdbutler, all of those places. You can leave me a comment on this video. You can leave me a note on one of the social media platforms, and I will respond. You can also send me an email if you'd like to get in touch with me at contact@nerdbutler.com, or you can leave a voicemail at 469-546-5585. If you would like me to respond directly to you from that voicemail, please leave contact information for me to do that. If you don't want me to get back to you, I will take your voicemail and happily include it in the next broadcast and answer your question that way. So, the big thing I wanted to talk about sort of in the tech news world this week is the lawsuit ongoing between Epic Games and Apple and Google. So Epic Games, maker of Fortnite, is suing Apple and Google, owners of really the only 2 app stores that matter for mobile devices. So here's the deal. If you create software and you would like it included in the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store so that people can install it on their phones and their tablets and all the other things, you have to agree to certain terms and conditions. Included in those terms and conditions are, they vary between Apple and Google, but basically you can't have illegal material. You can't have material that incites violence. You can't have pornographic material. I think there are a few loopholes in there, but you can't. And in addition to that, any money you make through the sale of the app or through purchases made through the app, 30% of that goes to Apple or to Google. So Epic Games has an incredibly successful product in the Fortnite game, and they are making millions of dollars. Millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, and 30% of which is going to Apple and Google. And obviously they would like to not give Apple and Google that chunk of their pie. So what has happened, initially what happened was Epic Games they did not put their game in the Google Play Store. They offered it as a download because on an Android phone, you can load software that doesn't come through the Play Store. That was problematic. They had a piece of malware in it. They had basically a virus, and they had to fix that immediately. And eventually they kind of capitulated and realized that if they wanted to get the most people using their software, they had to go through the Play Store. So they did. They also did that with Apple. And then over time, they started doing some additional things. Basically, they changed the way the in-app purchase mechanism worked so that Apple and Google were not getting their 30%. So Fortnite is basically free to play, but you buy things in the game to enhance your character, which makes it a lot more fun to play. Lots of games work this way, right? Candy Crush is this way. You play for free. if you want to keep going, if you want to go faster, if you want to level up more, if you want to get some of the cooler stuff, you have to pay money, whether it's $1, $10, $100, whatever it is, to get those items or those powers or those gold coins or whatever it is that game is using. So this is not unusual. This is the business model. The most lucrative, the most profitable games on mobile devices use this model. Free game, in-app purchases. So Epic Games changed the way their in-app purchases work such that Apple and Google no longer got their cut. Apple and Google immediately kicked them out of the marketplace. They said, the deal is you give us 30%, and if you don't give us 30%, you are not going to be here anymore. And so Epic was ready for this. They knew what they were doing. They knew exactly what was going to happen. And so they immediately, because they had already prepared it, immediately filed a lawsuit against Google and Apple, claiming that they had a monopoly, an illegal monopoly, an antitrust violation in the way they were running their app marketplaces. So this one is interesting. And usually I can raise my hand and point at who I think the aggrieved party is. And I can point at who I think the party is that's behaving badly. This is an odd case because I can see both sides of it. And it's also a hard because we're talking about three companies that have lots and lots of zeros at the end of their annual bank statements. So it's a little tough, when billionaires are fighting with trillionaires, it's a little tough to pick a side here. But I bring this up because it is going to affect the way apps get distributed. It could potentially affect how secure your mobile device is in the future. So let me give you the two sides of the argument here real quick, and then kind of give you something to keep an eye out for as time goes on. The two sides of the argument are this. Apple and Google's side is, yes, we take 30%. However, for that 30%, you are getting marketing assistance by being placed in a catalog where people can find you, where they expect to go. You're getting public trust because we control and we validate and we vet all the things that are in the App Store. So people know if they find it here, it's not going to cause problems with their devices. They also say that they built the whole platform to begin with. Like, you wouldn't be able to make this money if not for us. We created the iPhone. We created the Android operating system. We created the market that allows you to make this money. And for all of those reasons, 30% is our cut. Depending on what industry you're in and what the business relationships there are like, 30% may seem like a lot to you, and it may not. Paying a third, spending a third of your revenue on marketing, digital security, customer service, all of these things, spending a third of that on all of those things might seem completely reasonable, and it might seem completely outrageous. But that is Apple and Google's argument. We're taking 30%, but we've given you not only the tools to distribute your product to millions and billions of people, but we've also created a safe environment in which the consumers can trust that when they get that product, it's going to do what it says. So 30% is not that big a deal. And without us, you wouldn't have an audience in the first place. Epic's side of the argument is there is no alternative here. There is no, you are not allowing us to negotiate a better deal. You're not allowing us to innovate. This is a big word, innovate. You're not allowing us to come up with new and exciting ways of serving our customers. You are handcuffing us. You are keeping us constrained to this business model that serves your needs and not allowing us to expand and come up with new ways of serving our customers. Those are the two sides of it. What it basically comes down to is a lot of money. At the end of all of that, it's really hard for me to come up with an argument for Epic that doesn't get superseded by the arguments for Apple and Google. It's very difficult because the very first time that, Epic puts something on your device that causes a problem, you're going to complain to Apple and to Google. Meanwhile, Apple and Google have a responsibility in a lot of different ways to maintain a certain level of control so that every iPhone in the world isn't infected. Every Android phone in the world isn't taken over by a malicious actor. So I want you to keep an eye on those headlines if you're interested in these things at all, because what's going to happen as this lawsuit gets dragged out, and it's going to take forever, and there's going to be appeal upon appeal upon appeal. Epic is asking for the right to negotiate its own deal with Apple and Google, separate from the terms of service that Apple and Google have laid out for everybody else. And there is a precedent for that. Amazon has already done it. So that is where Epic is kind of hoping to make its mark. But really, Epic just wants more money. I don't think they're fighting a good fight for, ethical and moral reasons. I think they're fighting to get more money, which is their job as a for-profit business. But keep an eye on that, because if the lawsuit goes against Apple and Google, it's going to fundamentally change the way we interact with our mobile devices. It's going to change all of the things we take for granted now, like this app is safe and someone has looked at it and decided that it doesn't have a virus in it. Google and Apple aren't perfect at this, but they are the ones who are sort of the gatekeepers to prevent data theft and prevent malicious ads and things like that from happening. So I want you to keep an eye on that, and we'll talk about it again as that lawsuit goes forward, I am sure. Guys, thank you so much. I'm coming up on 1 hour. I have been talking nonstop. I appreciate everyone who has watched. I appreciate everyone who's going to tune in later. Once again, my name is Levi. If you would like to see more of my stuff, you can find me at nerdbutler.com. That's the blog. You can find me on all social media at nerdbutler. You can leave me a note at either of those locations, and I will respond to you. Ask a question. Give me some feedback. Let me know what you'd like to hear more of or less of. You can also email me at contact@nerdbutler.com or leave a voicemail at 469-546-5585. I will be back again next Sunday for another Tech Support Sunday. Send me some questions before then. We'll get to them. Otherwise, I will go through the week's news and some tips and tricks, tools, tutorials, resources, and recommendations to make your life a little better, because technology is not a luxury. See you guys next time.